Europe in the early 20th century was a powder keg of tension. A tangled web of alliances bound nations together in a dangerous game of power politics. Germany and Austria-Hungary stood together, wary of their neighbours. France and Russia, bound by a mutual fear of German aggression, formed their own alliance. Great Britain, seeking to maintain the balance of power, joined France and Russia, creating the Triple Entente. This intricate system of alliances meant that a conflict between any two nations could quickly escalate into a wider war.
Nationalism surged across Europe, with people feeling a strong sense of pride and loyalty to their own nation. This often translated into a desire for national glory and expansion, further heightening tensions. Militarism was another key factor that pushed Europe towards war. Countries engaged in a dangerous arms race, building up their armies and navies at an alarming rate. Each nation sought to outdo its rivals, viewing military strength as the ultimate measure of power.
Imperialism, the pursuit of colonies and empires, also played a role in the outbreak of World War I. European powers competed fiercely for control of territories in Africa, Asia and the Pacific. These factors, alliances, nationalism, militarism and imperialism, created a volatile mix that set the stage for World War I.
The spark that ignited the powder keg of Europe came on a sunny June day in 1914. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, was visiting Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia. Bosnia was a hotbed of nationalist sentiment, with many Serbs living within its borders yearning for union with Serbia. As the Archduke's motorcade made its way through the city streets, a young Serbian nationalist, Gavrilo Princip, seized his opportunity. Princip, a member of the Black Hand, a secret society dedicated to Serbian unification, fired 2 shots into the Archduke's car, mortally wounding both Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie. Austria-Hungary, outraged by the assassination of its heir apparent, blamed Serbia for the attack. Germany, bound by its alliance with Austria-Hungary, pledged its unwavering support. On July 28, 1914, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, setting in motion the chain of events that would plunge Europe into the abyss of World War I. The Western Front, stretching for hundreds of miles across northeastern France and Belgium, became synonymous with the horrors of World War I. It was here that the industrialized nature of modern warfare reached its terrifying zenith. Millions of soldiers faced each other across a desolate landscape of trenches, barbed wire, and mud.
The Western Front was characterized by a brutal form of warfare known as trench warfare. Soldiers on both sides dug elaborate systems of trenches, connected by communication trenches and protected by machine gun nests and artillery batteries. The trenches offered some protection from enemy fire, but they were also breeding grounds for disease and despair. Attacks on the Western Front often followed a similar pattern. Artillery bombardments, lasting for hours or even days, would pound the enemy trenches, attempting to soften up defenses. Then, waves of infantry would go over the top, charging across no man's land, the treacherous ground between the trenches, towards the enemy lines.
These attacks were often met with withering machine gun fire and artillery barrages. Casualty rates were appalling, with tens of thousands of men killed or wounded in a single day. The Battle of the Somme, which raged for over 4 months in 1916, epitomized the futility of trench warfare, with over 1 million casualties for a few miles of gained territory. While the Western Front raged with unparalleled ferocity, the Eastern and Italian fronts were also scenes of major battles and significant bloodshed. The Eastern Front, stretching from the Baltic Sea in the north to the Black Sea in the south, was characterized by its vast scale and fluidity. Unlike the static trench warfare of the Western Front, the Eastern Front saw more mobile operations, with large armies clashing over vast distances. Russia, with its vast manpower reserves, initially posed a significant threat to Germany and Austria-Hungary. However, Russia's lack of industrial capacity and weak infrastructure hampered its war effort. The Italian front, which opened up in 1915, was characterized by mountainous terrain that made traditional warfare difficult.
The African front of World War I often gets overlooked in the grand narrative of the war, but it was a theater of significant conflict with far-reaching consequences.
European colonial powers, Great Britain, France, Germany, and Portugal, All had colonies in Africa, and the war quickly spread to these territories. African soldiers played a crucial role in the war effort, fighting on behalf of their colonial masters. The First World War was marked by countless battles, each leaving an indelible mark on the landscape and the souls of those who fought there. 3 battles in particular stand out for their ferocity, their strategic significance, and the sheer scale of human suffering they inflicted. The Battle of the Marne, the Battle of Gallipoli, and the Battle of Verdun. The Battle of the Marne, fought in September 1914, was a pivotal early battle that prevented a swift German victory. German forces, following their Schlieffen Plan, had advanced rapidly into France, threatening to capture Paris. However, French and British forces launched a counterattack, halting the German advance and forcing them to retreat. The Battle of Gallipoli, fought in 1915, was a disastrous campaign for the Allies. The British and French, hoping to knock the Ottoman Empire out of the war, launched a naval and amphibious assault on the Gallipoli Peninsula in Turkey. The campaign was poorly planned and executed, and the Allies faced stiff resistance from the Ottoman defenders. The Battle of Verdun, fought throughout 1916, was one of the longest and bloodiest battles in human history.
The First World War ended on November 11, 1918, when Germany, exhausted and facing defeat, signed the Armistice of Compiègne. The guns fell silent, and a stunned world, still reeling from the unprecedented carnage, began to take stock of the war's devastating toll.
The war had claimed the lives of millions, shattered empires, and redrawn the map of Europe. The war's end brought a mix of emotions, relief that the fighting was over, but also profound grief for the countless lives lost.
The world that emerged from World War I was vastly different from the one that had existed just a few years earlier. Empires crumbled, new nations were born, and the balance of power shifted dramatically.
Treaty of Versailles, seeds of future conflict. In 1919, world leaders gathered in Paris to negotiate a peace treaty that would officially end World War I and shape the post-war world.
The Treaty of Versailles, signed on June 28, 1919, was the most important of the treaties that ended the war. It officially ended the state of war between Germany and the Allied powers.
The treaty, however, was deeply flawed and sowed the seeds of future conflict. It placed the blame for the war squarely on Germany, forcing it to accept full responsibility for the conflict.
Germany was required to pay massive reparations to the Allied powers, cede territory, disarm its military, and relinquish its colonies. The Treaty of Versailles was met with outrage in Germany, where it was seen as a humiliating and unjust diktat.
The First World War brought about seismic shifts in the global balance of power.
4 empires, the German, Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, and Russian empires, collapsed under the weight of war and internal strife. New nations, such as Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, and Poland, emerged from the ruins of empires.
The war also led to the rise of new ideologies. Communism, which had taken root in Russia during the war, spread to other parts of Europe and Asia.
Fascism, a far-right ideology that glorified nationalism, militarism, and authoritarianism, emerged in Italy and Germany.
The First World War left an indelible mark on societies around the world.
The war had a profound impact on gender roles, as women took on new responsibilities in the workforce while men were away fighting. The war also led to advances in medicine and technology, as new techniques were developed to treat the wounded and new weapons were invented to gain an advantage on the battlefield.
The war also had a deep psychological impact on those who experienced it. The First World War stands as a stark reminder of the human cost of conflict and the importance of diplomacy and international cooperation.
The war taught us that alliances, while intended to deter aggression, can also drag nations into conflicts they might otherwise avoid. It showed us that nationalism, while a powerful force, can be easily manipulated and lead to violence and hatred.
The war also highlighted the dangers of militarism and the arms race. The buildup of weapons in armies in the years leading up to the war created a climate of fear and suspicion that made war more likely.
The war's aftermath demonstrated the importance of a just and lasting peace. The Treaty of Versailles, with its harsh punishments and emphasis on revenge, failed to address the root causes of the conflict and sowed the seeds of future wars.